Let's take a look at some statistics and talk about this issue of whether hauntings are believed by the masses or what the percentages are. In a 2005 study, 37% of Americans believed in ghosts. And according to a study in 2003, more than 1 in 10 Americans believe to have seen a ghost. So we're not talking about necessarily a small group of people, especially in context of the entire population of the country. We're talking about almost 1/3 of all Americans. Let's go on. A random survey of adults from a phone directory found 50% believed in ghosts. That was in a 2001 sample. One extreme example showed that 70% of Purdue University students indicated a belief in ghosts. So you can see that depending on the study, we're always finding a group of people, if not a majority, then a strong minority. But certainly we are finding enough people that believe in the paranormal to not discount the fact that they're out there, right? There's a large segment of the population that do hold these beliefs, and it might be even more now. Those studies are, at least 10 years old. So with that in mind, that we're dealing with at least a large minority, if not a majority, depending on the demographic that we're in, does that change your mind that hauntings are no longer a mythological or religious issue, but a legal issue now when selling a home? What about this? What about a hot seller's market? Much like at the time of this filming we're in right now, where multiple offers are coming in within minutes of a home going up on the multiple listing service. What about a market so hot where the inventory just isn't there, right? There's just no one selling their home, but there's a lot of buyers and they'll take whatever comes up. Now is a haunting a material fact? That's an interesting question, isn't it? What about the death of a prior occupant? Like in New York, for example, a report that I read saw that buyers were actually scouring the obituaries to find out where people died because now their home or their apartment was going to go up for sale. So much like that kind of notion with a haunted house, in a hot seller's market, is that something that now has to be disclosed? Is that going to be a material issue that's going to dissuade a lot of buyers, as it might be more in a buyer's market where there's a lot of homes to choose from? Does the market trend have anything to do with it? And what about culture? Different cultures and societies have different beliefs about the paranormal, about death, life after death, and things like that. So maybe now, hopefully, you can see that this issue is really a sticky issue. We're going to go through more cases, and you're going to see the courts go one way on some and other way on another issue, and they differ, all different states. They're finding different rationales and reasons to decide the way they do. And a lot of the reasons that they decide not to force disclosure is because they don't want to go down this muddy road of who to disclose what to and where the line is. And we'll see that. But it does raise an interesting notion as a real estate agent that, if we know of a certain background or a certain ethnicity and how they feel about certain issues that happen in the house, do we now have to disclose that? So, we have this issue of those that believe in ghosts, those that believe in hauntings, versus those that would buy the house anyway. And you have to wonder, if it's 62% are saying that they would go through and just buy it anyway because a haunted house doesn't bother them, is it because it's a majority that haunted houses are not a stigmatized issue according to legislative law? The legislatures have not put that in the state code. It might be, I don't know. But what we do know is that there's a lot of people that believe in them, and there's still a lot of people that say they'd buy one anyway. So, interesting case, interesting discussion. If you're ever practicing in New York, you now know haunted house, going to be a material fact. There's precedent there. But no, to my knowledge, no state law on the books deems haunted house as a material issue. However, like I said, there's other considerations. If you have reason to believe that haunted houses may be a material fact for a specific buyer, err on the side of disclosure anyway. In fact, I think every authority that you'll ever come across will always say, if there's ever a question, err on the side of disclosure. Of course, that brings up a whole host of other questions about what's in the seller's interest, right? But that's for another class. One thing that you do need to be aware of if you do list a haunted house is how you're going to advertise it. What kind of wording you're going to put in the advertisements. Because one thing that may not be in your seller's best interest is drawing attention to the house, right? If you put out an ad, haunted house, poltergeist, you might get neighborhood locals or city locals that find out about the ad, find out about the house, and now all of a sudden you got a tourism event going on every night, especially when there's a full moon and there's crowds lining up in the street. Now your seller can't enjoy their house. Not that they would anyway, because there's ghosts there, but you get the point. You don't want to make a spectacle of the house, because wherever there's a spectacle, there's always going to be some negative perception of why. And it may steer buyers away or scare buyers away, right? So that's one thing to consider, is the wording in any advertisement. The next thing to consider, it sounds crazy, when I was researching all of this and looked at all of this, these opinions and advice out there, there was one thing that stuck with me, and that is this. You might want to consider, it sounds crazy to say, have a paranormal expert come out and actually investigate the property. If they can find out the true story of the hauntings, the history of the poltergeist, then you're going to have a much more accurate description and story to disclose to the buyer if the subject has to come up under state law, or if it comes up because it's a material fact. So having the true story, the true background, all of the details is something that every agent should want as a listing agent, and certainly as a buyer's agent. But that is one thing to consider. You come across a haunted house, you know, you have a home inspector for your normal houses. Why not have a ghost inspector for your paranormal houses, right? All right, so there's haunted houses. Now you get the tempo for how this class is going to go. Let's go into the next topic of murder houses.